What's up, guys? Welcome to the podcast number 11, right, Trey? 11?
Yeah, we are on 11. How many episodes are we going to do this season?
Dude, season 8 coming. I
100?
don't know. I have no idea. What do you think? Slash, what's a season?
21.
When does our season end?
This is like us trying to, this is like production talk where it's like, yeah, we're going to release 12 episodes like we actually have a plan, and then we're going to take a break and start a new season.
Not like I didn't just call you, we talked for 10 minutes and then we were like, hey, we should make a podcast about what we're fucking talking about, minus like talking about people's names. So yeah, that's that. But hey, so we have a few interesting things we want to talk about. Timelines. Trey knows a lot about that. I know some, but I wanted to like learn more about that. So that's one thing we'll talk about. Also, we started talking about weed on the phone and kind of how that affects your spirituality. So that's another thing we want to talk about. But what we were just talking about, which is super funny, is this thing I thought about. We have this new guy at our Cosmos community from New Zealand. He's an awesome guy. And we also have me and Trey, a very good Australian friend named Thomas. And I just fucking laugh at their accent, like not in like a bad way. It just like makes me smile, you know? And we were talking about like how great of an advantage would it be if like living in a country where like everyone you talk to just made you smile or laugh, like not like in a way of making fun. It's just genuinely a smile. Like you'd make so many friends, and you know, life would be so awesome.
It's like, yeah, just going down to the supermarket or to having a conversation with a random person at a bar. And like in America, you almost want to avoid it, but it's like for Australian
in America,
people
with the Karens and the Sharons and the Barons.
Yeah, Australian accents bring me joy.
They do. What's some good sayings? I was just going. Right. You do it way better. How did Thomas say it? Like I was. He would tell the stories like I was just going with my. What do you do? You can do it better than me.
Yeah, I don't know if it's all Australians, but the ones I've met are really good storytellers. Is that like part of the culture where it's like you guys tell stories? Because I remember Thomas, who would just go on in these stories and you just be listening like yeah, so I was fucking getting hammered with my mates one night, and then we fucking decided to take a train, and on the fucking train there was a homeless guy and he gave us some acid, and fuck, that acid was some good acid, and you know, just goes on and on.
I think it's embedded now. I'm like, dude, why don't we talk about countries, because we have so much international experience. But I think, yeah, like even Italians, you know, like some of the best storytellers, like if you've ever heard any of these like former gangster like Italians that live in the US, like those are like some of the best storytellers, you know. And I think Italians are great storytellers. I think, yeah, it's just built into the culture, you know, like when you have a culture where, you know, a big part of what you're doing is sitting with your family at dinners and telling stories, and it's just embedded. It's so much different than like America, for example, or like you know, that's where I grew up. Like I don't do that with my family. I don't sit with my family and talk for 7 hours with no technology or anything like that about stories and uncle and cousins, and it's like 40 family members there. I don't know, something to it.
Yeah, I mean, also probably is your family got separated kind of too, because I know we're kind of both very international, and so I have family all around the world, so we don't have these moments where we spend like a week at grandma's house, or you know, grandma comes over every day. You know, it's very different. I get to see them maybe once a year or less, so it's like our families are all scattered across the world.
Yeah, man. Same with me. I mean, like, I have my French side of the family. They're mostly scattered all over France. Like, all over France, I have family. Like, literally, you know, even like, yeah, like you could just like throw dots on France, and that's like how many different places I have family. And then in America, it's just, yeah, LA and San Francisco, and my mom's in San Francisco, my grandpa's in LA, my brother's in Denver, and then I'm here. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm curious though, Trey, like we've never talked about this. And like one thing that makes us special is the fact that we both have so much fucking international experience. You know, like you were like, I don't think a lot of people know that about you, that you were born in Italy, but you grew up in fucking Singapore, and then you fucking moved to Vancouver, Canada, and then to Colorado, now to London. So you've lived a fuck ton of places.
Yeah, and then
how does that make you feel about yourself?
Well,
such a shitty psychologist. Like
the best thing about Singapore was growing up in a school where there was almost 60 different nationalities all intermingled into one place, and it was just a very international school. And so I got to experience a whole spectrum of personalities, accents, people, ways of thinking. And so what that did was it just opened my mind to everything. So it's like, you know how people will have culture shock moving to different places. For me, I don't get that. It's because everything's been opened already. All the channels are open. So there's nothing really that's like, whoa, this is different, because I just grew up acclimating to such a variety.
Yeah. And then you were telling me about like racism, like, and I feel, and also before we go into that, but I wanted to ask you about like the racism, how you guys just kind of joked with each other at school, like about your races, and it made everyone not racist. But yeah, I went to a school like that in London for one semester. Actually, I transferred to the school, but it's when I started having my really bad anxiety that led to my Xanax addiction. Like crazy fucking shit what I was going through. I should look at what transit I had that time, because god damn, my world was exploding. But it was really bad, dude. But yeah, I saw what that was like too, and it was amazing to have a school with maybe a few hundred people, but like everyone's from a different country. You know, like I probably had nearly like 75% of the countries represented, or at least 50% of the countries represented by at least one person. This small school, and usually like, you know, it was like a very high, you know, like their parents were very, very high status. You know, I was one of the more poor people in this fucking school, like my family, or not my family, like me, because my mom didn't give me tons of money like those fucking Kuwaitis and people from Dubai and whatnot, fuckers. But
yeah, I grew up upper middle class, but some of the people in my school were like very rich Indian money, very rich Jewish and Korean money. And there was like a prince from Africa and this princess from like the Middle East. So you have these big people who are, you know, millions, billionaires maybe. But then there's like, most of us were kind of like upper middle class, and then there was a lot of rich people there too. But yeah, when it came to joking around with one another, you know how everywhere around the world you kind of chat shit with your friends. You know, you like pick at little things about their personality, and it's all in good fun. And we would just do that with each other's countries. Like my friends would make fun of like my Irish whiteness, or my, you know, my American accent or skin, and it was just something we would just throw at one another. And it was just the same with anyone. So if we saw a huge kind of like outburst of maybe their particular culture that we just would find funny, we just throw jokes at one another. And there wasn't all this kind of PC-ness around race as there is in the States and kind of in the UK these days too. Of course you wouldn't just do it to some random stranger, right? It's within your friend group.
Yeah. What would be like an example of a joke? You told me before, like making fun of like an Indian, for example. I think you had your best friend was Indian, right?
Yeah, my best friend was Indian, and the first time we saw him, he before he had come to Singapore, he was dressed in a cricket shirt, some khaki pants, and sandals.
What's the name of the cricket player, the best cricket player?
Sachin Tendulkar.
Oh shit, Sachin,
man. And just like and it was automatically, we just kind of started picking fun at that. And
that's awesome.
And he just came right back at us. Like, we had a Korean friend with us, and he's like, "Oh, you Korean motherfucker! Like, look at this!" Like, just.
I love that, dude. I wish everyone was like that, because like racism is only something. Okay, this is like a big statement, because obviously, you know, racism does exist, and there's some fucking retarded fucking people. But what really makes it exist is us giving it power, in the sense that by you guys just being like, fuck it, you know, like, just because society says it's not good to like make fun of someone because of the color of their skin, like, I can do that with my friends, you know. And when you start to think like, maybe like, I know it's impossible to really get there on a societal level because of all the shit that's going on, but imagine if that, like, it's just like the color, you know, like, it's just so weird that it's such a big thing, you know, like black skin, you know, it's fucking skin. Why is it not like size of your feet or your hair? You know what I mean?
Yeah, because we make
skin?
fun of each other for that, right? And there's no difference. So we make fun of each other like, dude, you got fucking tiny feet. Is your dick small? You know, it's like we could throw something like that, and no one would make anything of it. But I think like what happens is that there's trauma surrounding certain things, or, you know, triggers. Like, maybe they're people of a minority are constantly what's it called? Constantly picked out or amongst the crowd in a negative way from people who are actual assholes. Yeah. So then when someone actually does make a light, kind of playful, good-hearted joke, it reminds them of a trigger, which but I've seen people like in my school, like, who don't have that, and, you know, we just throw it at one another, and it's a much lighter, nicer way of existing, where you're not taking everything so seriously. And what happens with PC culture is, instead of teaching to learn how to adapt when someone throws that at you, we're censoring people's speech. So people aren't having the conversations that need to be had. Instead, people are, you know, there's white guilt and everything. People are so scared of saying something wrong that even though they're thinking it, but then they don't ever have the chance to correct their thinking through an honest conversation with someone. So I feel like, and it's also because of some of the reactions from people, even from white people. It's like someone makes one little comment that might not be PC, and then they get this whole range of shit coming at them just because someone wants to kind of take the high road.
Yeah, it's really toxic, because it's like you're walking on eggshells, and you're like, even with like the whole cancel culture, it's like, what the fuck is the point when you're not giving someone a chance to fucking heal, to change, you know? Like, it's so wild. It's just like, it doesn't make any sense, because the whole purpose is to of humanity, of a human, is to fucking make mistakes and then learn from them and then become better. But cancel culture is just like, no, you make a mistake, that means you're bad forever and you can't have another chance. It's just, to me, it's just wild, you know? And it creates a less free society. It creates a society where comedy and like joy can't exist as much, because you're afraid that, like, if I make this joke that maybe 20 years ago would make like everyone laugh, including the person you made the joke at, if he had a good sense of humor of himself or herself, you're worried about that becoming a lawsuit or becoming like seen as racism or fucking whatever. And it's true, it does have to do with the trauma. So you know, but it's cool to see it in micro circles like that with your old friends and stuff. And
yeah,
it's just so fucked.
Yeah, I mean, the key is not taking yourself too seriously, and not taking things too seriously. Of course, yeah, it's like about reading the energy, because if someone's coming at you light, playfully, compared to if someone's actually meaning to insult, that's a very different thing. But we're choosing key words and topics that are now not allowed to be spoken or not allowed to be talked about. When it's done in a joking way, it can actually bring a new lightness to it. So
yeah, exactly. Well, that got us talking about.
Speaking of culture,
yeah,
What about weed culture? Because in the US, it's becoming so social because it's becoming legal everywhere. It's like it's almost as social as drinking wine, nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah, man, you want to know my opinion about it, or like how I feel about it?
Because I know you have a specific opinion about things around it.
Well, I'm not anti-weed. I think that I used to smoke weed 8 times a fucking day when I had a good effect of it. So clearly I fucking love it if I could, but I haven't smoked in like 10 years besides when I'm really, really, partying and, drunk or something. I can smoke and not get the crazy anxiety. It's like a whole nother story. But I think it's dangerous for some people. So I do think people should have the freedom to decide, but I think the way it's being branded is dangerous, because you'll see kids thinking like I think with alcohol, obviously there's tons of arguments in either way, but with alcohol, it's like, yeah, like people do terrible things when they're drunk, but I don't think it affects your motivation, like marijuana does. That's the thing I'm very afraid of, is like, I've seen so many people just like have their motivation and desire to kind of move forward in life, and not that that's all that matters, but just self-esteem too, stuff like that, just destroyed by weed, because it's powerful, and it's getting more and more powerful these days.
Well, the thing is, like, if you drank, like most people drink less than a couple times a week, right? You drink, maybe you'll have a wine at dinner, or maybe you'll go out with your friends and get drunk a bit, and maybe you'll have one day where you kind of have a hangover. But
yeah,
it's different to where like alcoholics who are drinking all the time, all day. And that's kind of the culture we're starting to see with weed, is that it's becoming almost, of course, there's nowhere near as many violent side effects or anything from weed, but people are smoking, they light up when they wake up, and you say it's not addictive, but the more you smoke it, the more it becomes habitual, and you end up wanting to smoke more and more and more. And like, I remember when I first tried it, it was literally a medicine for me. It opened my mind in a whole new way that I had never experienced before. It connected me to nature when I was a gamer who hated the outdoors. And so it was really a mind opener for me. And it is called a plant medicine, and that's what I think it is. It should be taken in doses when maybe you need to remember a certain thing about the world, or when you have some sort of spirit sickness that needs addressing, because I feel like weed brings everything to the surface. It makes everything very apparent. So if you have any weird insecurities, they're going to come out, and it's good to flesh those things out. But I think when weed because when weed becomes like a chronic thing, then I think it starts to be bad, because it becomes a crutch and a thing to cope with.
Yeah, man. By the way, I'm just writing down notes so I can give timestamps for our episode. That I'm not like when you see me on my phone. But yeah, so you're thinking that it's becoming like a crutch, and like it really is it becomes something where it's like you're only like, people like become very, very reliant on weed for different things, like for not, in the way it's marketed. Yeah, it's like for example, I've seen people who have a lot of trauma, and I think it's a big difference between smoking weed all day and maybe smoking weed at the end of the day. I really think that's a big difference, because like if you're like high all day, you wake up, smoke a joint, and by the way, I have nothing against it, I don't judge, but like, you're not giving your mind any time to be like normal you. And a lot of like trauma and just growth, in my opinion, has to be done when you're in your state of sobriety, right?
Yeah.
Because when you can grow so much, as you've seen, like you can have all the growth in the world when you're high as fuck, and then you wake up like the next day and you're like, fuck, or in your case, forgetting everything every 5 seconds.
Yeah, that's one of the symptoms for me. Like I I have a huge
my visual
capacity,
an alter ego who we can't talk about. We can't talk about the alter ego.
My visual capacity also on marijuana becomes like tenfold. Like when I close my eyes, it's like I'm seeing a movie in my head almost all the time. And but my memory becomes like 15 seconds long where I'll be in the middle of saying something and then I'll forget completely what I was just talking about.
It's a great viewer experience though. It's fucking awesome to watch. It's so funny. Yeah, that was amazing. But yeah, so it's like,
I think it is something to talk about because we say it's not addicting, but it is psychologically addictive at a certain point. And what happens is that in terms of spirituality is that you can't really gain any ground with marijuana. You kind of stay in the same place. That's what I've noticed. Is like if you're high and doing yoga and doing spiritual practices, it doesn't really build upon itself. It's like you're getting high and then kind of getting lower than you were before, and then getting high and then getting lower than you were before. And I think sobriety is like essential to kind of keep that momentum going.
Yeah, so the question is sobriety essential for spirituality, for spiritual growth? That's a question.
Yeah, I think so. I had a yoga teacher, and he said he spent a bunch of time with these sages in India, and they were all smoking chilam, which is it's marijuana, and you smoke out of a specific pipe, and you hold it in a different way, and you have this cloth. And he said he spent a lot of time with them, but out of all of them, none of them he looked up to in a way like, this is where I want to be going. It was only the sages that he found that were completely clean and sober and deep in their practices that he was like, okay, this person is someone I could trust in. And I think even these sages in India will use marijuana as a way to cope with the times and with everything that's going on.
Yeah, I keep thinking of the word blurred lines, like just fog, like it's very Neptunian weed. And Neptune can be very spiritual, but it can also be very fooling and create, kind of impressions of things that aren't really there. And what I've seen with a lot of people who use weed in these types of ways is that it's difficult for many to keep it under control and not overdo it, to be like, oh, I'm just going to smoke here and there socially. Like it's difficult. Obviously there's people who are like that, but for someone who actually smokes and likes to smoke alone, it's difficult to do that. And I feel like it makes people just like little small things shift. Like you become less social, like you become like you get these like kind of weird ideas in your head sometimes about people, and maybe everyone has their different versions. Some people are super social, but like overthinking. I think it definitely blocks your third eye. There's no, what do you think? There's no way that.
For me, it like opens it in the moment. If it's like a fresh experience, like I haven't smoked in a while, and it'll have like a good like opening residual effect for a bit longer. But then once it becomes a habit, then it feels like everything closes down. Also, I feel like I get congested more, like my nose blocks up. Also, my lungs will start to feel less, it can lead to lung cancer, and it also ends up leading to more kind of schizophrenic thoughts.
Yeah, man, don't get me started on that. Have I talked about that on the podcast at all, about like what I found out about that?
I don't think so.
Okay, really quickly, guys. So I smoked weed a shit ton when I was young, as I said before, like mostly high school, start of university. And then all of a sudden I had this really dark period where it went from being the most joyous, like imagine me just like really like how I am now, but just like more like smiley and just like oh yeah, like, but like also getting stuff done. It worked really well for me. It made me happier. I was hilarious to be around, and I would get super high, not just high. I would smoke, like just be the guy that just so stoned. And I loved it. People loved me for it because I was hilarious when I was high. And it's just everyone wanted to smoke with me and I want to smoke with everyone. And then it just started getting horrible. And I, instead of quitting right away, I was like, what the fuck? So I kept doing it. And I would have like, I remember like very distinctly having these nights out, like where I'm having the best time drinking, you know, talking to girls with my homies, whatever. And then like end of the night, like even like, I remember one night I was like with this girl and we were having the most best flowing time ever. You know, nothing really happened, but we were, you know, flirting, just like in the moment stuff. And then I smoked and I just became like empty, just like schizophrenic type, like just like not even like in a funny way. I know you've had that too, but like just like really like harping super fast, like thoughts, like I don't want to say hearing voices, but kind of close to that. Like everything that like checked out on the schizophrenic, like I right away I was like, dude, this feels schizophrenic. Like in my head I was like, if I keep smoking and doing this to myself, like I would see myself from like another, like dissociate completely. I would see myself in the room and be like in another part of the room, looking at myself, seeing myself from the most ugly and like pessimistic and like self-hating like angle, you know, everything was worthless and nothing meant anything. This girl hates me. Like I'm a fucking loser. Why would she talk to me? Like she just liked me because I was being funny and drunk and stupid, you know, I wasn't showing the real me, these kind of thoughts.
Yeah, it's strange but when then it takes that turn. Like when there's like a moment where like, I think a lot of people experience this where it's like so funny, like especially when you're trying it when you're like a teenager, it's like, oh my God, everything's so funny. You're laughing so much, you're having the best time. And then after a while, everything starts to change and it just gets darker, you know? And I think it's from the abuse of the plant when you're using it too much.
The spirit. Yeah, because remember, all plants have spirits. So when I think about each plant, I think of like an entity, like a spirit. And I think that marijuana is a spirit. So it's almost like a person or like a god, right? And the marijuana god decides whether what kind of experience you'll have if you need the healing of the plant. And, you know, I've heard a lot of people have similar things. And for me, I think that the marijuana plant was like, this motherfucker is smoking way too much of me. And, you know, this is not part of his path. And just unleashed that. I was seeing things. For me, it was the visions that were really fucking with me. Like I would see things, dude, and people. I saw like stuff that just scared the shit out of me. And you know, I would smoke here
because of that paranoia aspect.
Yeah, but it became like visual, actually, like seeing things that weren't there, like hallucinations and shit, and like it was fucked up, dude. And the thoughts, I think the thoughts were voices, honestly. Like it wasn't like a voice I heard, but it was that level. So I kept doing it for probably a year. Like not all the time, but like it wasn't like I quit right away. It was like I still did that to myself, and once in a while it'd be fine. I'd have a good high, an okay high, but then the next one would just be horrible. So I eventually quit, and I forgot what was the point of me telling this story originally. Just to tell it, I totally slipped my mind.
I think I kind of slipped on too, thinking about weed and our memories are going.
Yeah, right. Well, that was kind of how it was for me. I was just talking about schizophrenia. Yeah. So okay, this is it. So later, like recently last year, I was watching a podcast, and this guy talked about his experience with weed, and it was exactly like mine. I was like, wow, like this. I was like, what the fuck? Like, has God brought me to watch this? It was like, you know, it was all the little nuances were exactly the same. And then he says that he went to a homeopathic doctor who told him that the THC activated a gene within him that was linked to schizophrenia. Mm. And when I heard that, my whole body shook up, and I just was like, oh my fucking God. Because during those days after I quit weed, and for years after, I was telling people like not really knowing if it was true or not, kind of thing that's probably wrong. And a lot of people, sometimes people would call me like, not like a pussy, but, you know, people be like, it's all in your head, you know, like everyone deals with the same. But like, I was like, no, dude, like I can deal with shit. I'm tough. But like, I was like, if I would have kept like going with peer pressure or like whatever, like dude, I would be schizophrenic. I would be crazy. No way I could fucking survive that for like over and over, the accumulated effect, dude. I'd be fucked.
That happened
this person
to that happened to this guy I knew, actually, like 100%. It happened where he was smoking weed constantly, and then he ended up one day he was completely sober and he saw this creature in his room, and he became like, from that day on, he switched to schizophrenia, and he had to start getting on medication because like literally he was having visual hallucinations.
Just one day,
it just shifted over. And he was then diagnosed as schizophrenic, and so yeah, it does have that potential to do that. And I think it's for certain people. It could activate. I don't know if it's for everyone, because Snoop Dogg smokes like a fucking G all the time.
Yo, but he has that karma. It's like karma, dude. It's like karma with the plant. You know, like my karma with the plant was awesome. Some of my best memories from my teenage years were being stoned out of my mind with my friends in my car that I wasn't allowed to drive yet because I was underage. That was sitting in my driveway in front of my house, and just hotboxing that fucking thing, that SUV, that Ford Expedition, for literally 8 hours in a row. Like, and just like so much smoke in there where you could barely breathe, and just like opening the door, and it's like a whole fucking, like, just the amount of smoke that came out was just ridiculous. And just like going back in my house and just being so fucked.
Yeah, I remember being able to
serves
smoke
a purpose. It's
endless amounts. Like, we would go to this place in Vancouver called the Amsterdam Cafe, and they had these vape volcanoes, which is you put the dry herb into the volcano, and it fills up.
That's what I had. That's what I had. It fills
up this huge bag that's like I think like a meter long, and then you just pass it around with your friends, and we could just do that all night if we wanted to, you know.
Dude, I owned one. That's what I used. I owned 2 of those.
Shit.
I mean, I bought one, and then I bought another one when that one broke or some shit. Yeah, man. Like I would go like fucking 40 bags in a row or some shit. Like, whatever.
Yeah, what it did.
But the point is not like.
It also unlocked my creativity, because like through school and the system, kind of, sometimes your creativity can seriously take a plunge when you're put in this system where everything is about memorization and tests. And my creativity was shut down. Like, as a child, I was super imaginative. And I remember when we would play as kids, we would always be creating these games, like fantasy games with different characters. And I had this huge costume box, and I would always, kind of imagine things with myself and my toys. And it got shut down around middle school, or earlier actually. And when I smoked weed, I remember just needing to draw. Like, I took a pen and paper and just started drawing things and symbols and shapes and cool things. And I was like, whoa, I can actually draw. Like, before I tried to draw and it was just dead. And then my imagination started coming back. So it did have some positive effects where it unlocked creativity. It unlocked kind of intuition. It unlocked my love for the natural
inner
world
child,
again.
Dude.
Yeah, inner child.
Inner child. It's like, dude, I just thought of this. It's like, so I'm super in touch with my inner child, like, especially now, like me and my girlfriend were like basically 2 children. But like, I think weed can help just what you said. Like when you're in high school, shit's getting serious, getting stressful. It can help kind of unlock that ability to laugh and to have fun and to not take things so seriously. So I don't want to say I don't like weed. For me, it doesn't have a good effect on me anymore, but it did a shit ton for me back in the day, because, man, I had so much fucking fun, and I made so many friends, which those friends I made, like, what effect that had on my self-esteem, and, like, just so much fun, so many experiences. So I think everyone has, it's just different for everyone. But really quickly, we're talking about it. No, I was just going to say, like, before segue over, like, but we're talking about it in the, spiritual, because, we're talking about spirituality. It's that gets a little bit tricky, especially because I'm thinking like of like being like at least in your like mid-20s kind of area, like trying to kind of get a little bit serious about life. that kind of stuff. It's a lot different than when you're like in college or in high school.
Yeah, or if you're using it medically, and any of that. But I think everyone has a set amount. That's kind of what my intuition says. It's like marijuana is like, okay, you get 700 joints before you're gonna fucking before before you're done, and other people get like maybe only one, and then that's it. Like, you move on from it. But I do think it's a great teacher, and it should be seen as a medicine and a teacher, and not like a habitual thing. And I think everyone who smokes knows at a certain time where it's like, I should actually stop smoking. And I think everyone kind of gets to that point.
Yeah. One sec. Keep talking. I'm writing down something for our summary, our episode summary.
Yeah, but speaking of spirituality and unlocking different potentials, we kind of want to segue into something that we've been talking about, and something that I've actually been exploring recently. I just wrote a story, and I'm going to be releasing the first chapter as an audiobook on YouTube. That's going to be a continuation series about timelines and about shifting timelines. Hey everyone, Trey here. I just wanted to take a quick pause from the podcast to remind you, if you like what you hear and you're enjoying listening, then please take the time to like and subscribe, and feel free to leave a comment on any of the topics that we discuss. We love to hear your opinion, and we love to hear what else you want from us. So anyway, back to the podcast. So do you have any idea about this, Jesse? Kind of, let's judge your scope.
Well, before that, I guess just to kind of conclude on the weed stuff, I want to just like say, kind of finish just a conclusion on it. Like, I think you said it really well. Like, if you guys are into kind of visualization, I visualize this weed god. She's like kind of dark blue, purplish, kind of more blue, like this is very ethery, and filled with light and little particles. And it's a woman, I think, and she decides everything, like you said, like how it's going to be for you, and it can be great. So it's all about going within yourself and understanding, like, have I taken this too far? Like, some people have a period of their life where they're just meant, it's good for them to just fucking smoke, like someone very close to me, a good friend, has gone through a lot of trauma in their life, and she uses it, and I've seen it actually have a beneficial psychological effect over the span of over a year, and not just because, like, she's not someone that's always smoking when I see her, but like from what I've heard is that she's changed a lot of like behaviors that were very bad, that were like detrimental to relationships and to herself. And I'm not saying it's all because of that, but it helped, and it was it wasn't like a constant weed smoke. And I imagine for her and maybe several other friends I have who are in similar situations, that eventually the day will come where weed won't be necessary, or it's not necessary, weed won't be wanted, and it's just, they'll stop, or they won't, you never know. It's hard to tell.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell. So
when you get to that point, there's sometimes like because your body does become dependent, or your mind becomes psychologically dependent, that sometimes it takes a while for you to actually be able to quit.
Yeah, and it's circumstantial too. It's like, you have to be able to afford it. You have to be like, like, imagine someone like has like a job, or they're in a relationship, and they, smoke weed or whatever with their boyfriend or their girlfriend. Then they break up, they move back in with their parents. Suddenly they have no one to smoke with, and they can't really afford it, or even know where to get it. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like the karma of that can kind of affect it as well, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, natural cycles and their endings.
Exactly. So anyways, yeah, shifting to timeline. So how long we went? Around 44 minutes or 40 minutes on this stuff. Wait, no. 1 second. So after 40, so yeah, with timelines, I mean, I think of timelines. So reality is not linear. There's different. So if I'm sitting here right now, or let's say yesterday, right? There's a timeline, or a random day. There's a timeline of Jesse, just personally. This, like, I'm like trying to decide, do I want to run a lot? This is an example I thought of. Like, do I want to go on this run? Because I was feeling really anxious that day, you know. And I imagine the timeline of me going on that run. What happened after? What happened after that? What happened after that? Right? Based on that decision. And then there's a timeline of like, oh, maybe I'm just gonna, like, you know, be lazy and, you know, do things that might not be so good for my health, but that help alleviate the anxiety, right? It's not heroin, people. And then I thought about like what that would lead to. Then there's like the sauna. Maybe I want to go in the sauna. Basically, that's a very micro level of like, it's like different roads, and then those roads go into other different roads, and then those roads go into other different roads. And that's like kind of the micro human level. But then, like, and this is kind of why I want to talk about this, because I know that, like, from like a universe standpoint, like we talk about like you talked to me a lot about like how Earth went through, you know, in this timeline, like, of reality, this and this happened. So I'm not going to act like I know like how to really explain that to people. I have my own intuition ideas about it, but I prefer for you to kind of explain it, and then I'm sure I know it all in there. It's just not able to express it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, well said. I think my idea of multiple timelines is that since the beginning, we were automatically creating multiple timelines. Like, if you think about your example, you made one decision that had an effect on your future, right? So your decision that you made in the past kind of led to a series of consequences that puts you where you are now. But at any number, you could have made any number of decisions in that moment. And that goes down to a cellular level where it's not just a person, but it's on a quantum field, where in the state of potential, where any infinite amount of things could happen. It could have taken this form or this direction or this path. And that's happened from the very beginning of the universe. And so what's that in its infinity, what that has done has created an infinite potential of timelines and existence that we can tap in and connect to. And there's been this trend on TikTok, which has got like over 250, maybe 260 million hits, and it's called reality shifting. And basically what it is these people are writing a script for themselves about what timeline they want to shift into. So it can be a crazy different timeline from our own, or it could be a one, like, let's say we could shift to a timeline where Nikola Tesla, all his inventions came out, he got funded, the whole world went in that direction. Or we could go to a completely different world, almost like a different universe, where a whole series of things led up to where maybe Star Wars exists, like Star Wars happened, and that world exists as a timeline. And so people will want to shift to that one. And the idea is that we have a self that exists within most of these timelines. And this self is all part of a grander self. But right now, we're only experiencing reality through a single timeline. And what we can do is that we can shift and hop and jump from timelines using just our consciousness.
Interesting. So yeah, because like if we think about it, like in our lives, it's like astrology, you know, shows us like kind of what the hand we're dealt, the cards were dealt in this game of life. But like, you know, for example, like I think in my own life, how, you know, there's one timeline is like marriage and kids and staying in a place, being a psychologist, you know, like being an astrologer, psychologist. Another timeline on a more macro level is like saying fuck that and just like going to India, or like, you know, trying to do travel documentaries or whatever. So there's some stuff that's like faded, but it's like, yeah, what was really interesting what you said is like how everything is infinite in the universe. So is that the reason why there's infinite timelines? So everything has happened in every single possible way in the quantum field.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the theory.
It's so unintuitive.
And yeah, it's we're kind of we're still perceiving things through a very limited perspective. It's like how we used to think the earth was flat and now it's round. And then eventually we'll begin to see that actually the earth exists in another dimension, in like, you know, more than 3 dimensions. It's not just a sphere, but maybe it's maybe all the planets in our solar system are part of one object, or like one huge shape, but we only perceive them as individual spheres because of our perspective. So what if it's like our galaxy is just one object, one mind, one organism? So yeah, we begin to see that. And what people are doing is they're kind of inducing an out-of-body experience to shift timelines. And people are actually doing this, like thousands and thousands of people all around the world are engaging in this kind of new esoteric practice, which is
how are they actually doing it? They're not actually doing it.
So actually, yeah, what they're saying is that they're shifting their consciousness for a period of time into a timeline that is different from this one. And so they're going and experiencing there, and then they're coming back. So that's what this TikTok trend is. Okay, so there's people who, let's say you really love Harry Potter, okay? So you're saying, I want to shift to a timeline where Harry Potter exists, and I want to experience that. So they write out a script, like saying what they're going to do, kind of what the timeline is, and they kind of ingrain it into their head. And you put yourself into an induced state, kind of like a trance, and you shift your conscious awareness from the timeline we're on now to that deviant, or to that parallel timeline, or to that distant timeline. And what happens is you have a body in all of those. And what you're doing is you're just shifting your conscious awareness to that timeline and to that potential, instead of being in this one. And so that's kind of
it's like a visualization.
Except it's not visual.
But they're not actually
no, they're saying they're actually experiencing, like we're experiencing here, in another world.
And these are like TikTok fucking teenagers and shit?
Yeah, teenagers are doing it, adults are doing it.
So if you were to do this, like you would be like, I want to go be a Viking or some shit. How you would just astral project?
Yeah.
Like, what about people who don't have, like, you know, like the ability to like see, like do that? Like, you know, like for like me during my shamanism, like I would always just see black or purple. Like I was never able to actually see visions.
So what I've kind of noticed everyone has a different path, but the potential is there for every single human. So you could astral project, even if you say you're having troubles. It's just like you learning how to play an instrument. It takes actually a lot of practice to get good and to become a master. Although some people from their karma will just pick up an instrument and for some reason remember, you know, maybe they'll remember from a past life and they'll just pick it up way faster than someone else. Or they'll be able to teach themselves really easily because they know it. So it's some part of their DNA or their past life is like reminding them. So all they need is a little push in the right direction. But for most people, you need to work really hard to get there. And the same thing goes for astral projection and everything. And what I've noticed for me when I first started spirituality, that side of spirituality, of esoteric practices, was really easy. The astral projection came out, and that's purely a karmic path. And I think it's because I needed a reminder on how incredibly vast and what was possible as a human to kind of inspire my soul to continue down spirituality. If I was like inspired, if I came through spirituality just through kind of like the boring just sit lens of Buddhism, where you're just sitting and like meditating and experiencing things, I don't know if I would have continued. But because I was brought this way, where I'm a very visual video game movie person, where I like sci-fi and fantasy,
you need that color.
I needed this like huge experience to kind of keep me propelled. But now in my stage of development, it's happening way less. But what I've noticed is that it's still possible, but now I have to work more for it. So it's like it's almost like I was given this karmic gift for a period of time. And now it's like I have to actually try to get to the same place where it was almost seamlessly easy before. But what I've noticed is that most people in these won't explain properly how to get there. They'll just give you a guided meditation and expect you get there. But what happens in that is, like, if you're in a group of 40 people, maybe 4 of those people will intuitively drop into the state where you need to be and have that shamanic out-of-body experience, whereas the rest of the people will be like, I don't get what just happened. But it's actually in concretely,
and then there's some shame. There's some shame also that can be created for those people who didn't see them, because they're like, oh fuck, I just can't do it. But really it's like with anything, you know, it's like some people get things faster, get lucky, or, you know, maybe they just have a visual mind or whatever. So,
honestly, it could be that, because what you need is you have to actually get to a point of relaxation and trust and comfort and surrender to be able to enter those states. So, and one of those things is being extremely tired. So let's say you go to this shamanic journey really tired and you almost fall into sleep, but then this guided meditation kind of brings you into this liminal state. And scientifically, what this trance state is, or this shamanic state is, or this psychic clairvoyant place is this state of existence, which is available to anyone. And you've probably experienced it. And it's called the hypnagogic state. And it's when your awareness is hovering between dreams and like being asleep and being awake. And you'll notice before you
the
go
middle
to
ground.
Yeah, before you go to sleep, you'll get like images, or you'll see things, or maybe you'll see some colors, or your dreams will start to come. But most of us will fall into unconsciousness when that happens. And so the trick here is
that's how you lucid dream, right?
Yeah, is to remain in this liminal state, but remain conscious. And it takes practice, because our mind is trained to constantly drop into sleep and drop into unconsciousness. So it's about slowly lowering ourselves, and it takes practice and meditation, just like anything else. Because like when you first start meditating, your thoughts are racing like crazy. You can't get to a place of silence. And the more you meditate, the more your mind begins to still, and the more you enter that meditative state. And it's just like with this. So everyone has the potential to enter it. It's just some people will have the karma to get into it quicker. For whatever reason that is. It could be you have a block in this, and you have to actually really show dedication, because sometimes initiation is like you have to really show that you want this, and you have to have like a clear, I hate to say intention, but like a clear reason why you want to do it.
No, that's fine.
Yeah. So it's like you have to have this.
Not that bad.
Yeah, you have to have this
say
intention.
intent instead of intention. Intent. Just intent sounds way better.
Intent. Yeah, because like
it's a way more it's a way more fiery and pronounced word. Intent. I like that word. Fucking intention. But yeah, dude, I know what you mean, and I got way better too. Like I got way better, and also when I was doing the shamanic stuff, what I learned, or like a few classes, like some people actually experience that more through like auditory, some through touch. Mm-hmm. So it's not all vision, and I realized for me, it's more like it's more like sounds and like kind of like how I get downloads, you know, where it's like mental images like little things that are so fucking Uranian and fast that they just like planted in my head so fast I think it's a thought, but it's really a download from above.
Yeah. And I think the reason that you might have had trouble in a group setting, like where you're lying on the floor, is because you're very sensitive to other people's energies and sounds, which makes you less willing to open up, because you do need a huge state of openness and surrender to kind of stay in that. And then also you have
so true,
a little bit of trouble of going to sleep. And what you need is really to have that energy of descent into sleep. But you have to catch yourself before you fall there. So also caffeine will work against you in this. So if you're drinking caffeine, that will also keep you from getting to that place, because it literally blocks a receptor within your brain. And then when the caffeine wears out, it all floods open again. So then you get this huge burst of tiredness, which is the crash from caffeine. So, and then you'll drop straight into sleep instead of like that hovering place. So yeah, I think those are the reasons, kind of why. Whereas if you were to dedicate yourself every day by yourself, right before sleep, or if you're really tired in the middle of the day, then you'd have a lot more success.
Yeah. Hey, so kind of like in a different scope of this, this whole discussion, like how do you see this playing out? Like I hear you talk about timelines, like you'll be like in this timeline or like in this timeline, like more as like a civilization is Earth or the universe. Like how does that look in a macro sense?
So yeah, what we're seeing now, especially right now, is that we have a huge potential like difference of where our Earth could go, right? We could go down a road where Elon Musk succeeds, and he succeeds in planting chips into everyone, where we can connect our mind to the internet and to Wikipedia instantly and receive all that knowledge from Wikipedia, and then we kind of begin to merge with machine. But what the thing is that people don't believe that psychic powers, that out-of-body experiences, that tapping into Akashic records and all these things is possible. We can connect to a truer source of information through our organic body. We don't need chips to connect to the internet or to Wikipedia. So what happens is, as I'm talking about spirituality in the sense of evolution, where we're becoming greater sentient beings, where we can psychically communicate with one another, where we can astral project at will as like children, and even as adults, and we can tap into Akashic records if we need to find out about history of our past. We don't need to search it up on the internet. We can literally go visit it. And this is the natural evolution of humanity. As you can see, the fact that it's on TikTok for the public is crazy, because this idea of timeline shifting is a mainstream idea. That is crazy, that like if we think about just even 10, 15 years ago, it's not even being talked about. And now look at where we are now, where there's teenagers, people using TikTok who are talking about timeline and reality shifting. So
and really quickly, astrology shows so much of this, and that's God's language, or like how you can kind of understand like the divine is through astrology is one way. And so many of these young generations that are on TikTok, like they have certain astrological components that are making them like that, like so like different, so spiritual, so compassionate. That's based on their outer planets, right? Because the outer planets, they stay in certain areas for a long time. So like, for example, my generation, I'm 30, 31, we are Uranus Neptune conjunction is what I have, with Saturn there too in Capricorn. And that is the epitome of like, and Pluto and Scorpio. And what that means altogether is like this generation is not fucking putting up with corruption. They're humanitarian as fuck. They care about the big picture. They want things to be fair. Like they want everyone to have a fair shot. And that's all based off of like the astrology. And you know, with this even younger one, Neptune and Pisces kids are going to be like such empaths, you know, like they're going to be so like spiritual and just like have like a deep innate understanding of things like astrology and whatnot, and who knows what conditioning can do to make them go the opposite way. But sometimes I think like maybe the elites, or I don't want to give conspiracies, but maybe like people who it's in their better interest to not have spirituality take over because it hurts business or whatever, maybe they actually are the ones that go to the astrologers the most. And maybe they understand. Maybe 2020 was something that was like, you know, the Great Awakening. Well, let's fucking, I'm not saying this is what I think. I'm just throwing out ideas. Maybe let's throw them inside fucking their houses so they can't have their Great Awakening. But you know what? You can only do it for so long if that's the case. And, you know, can you imagine if that was the case? If like people like elites or whatever were like during the Great Conjunction, we can't have people be like around each other, or else like the spiritual energy will take over and it's gonna fuck up all of our plans.
Well,
that'd be wild.
It's a potential, because like it is no conspiracy, like in terms of actual factuality, it takes people doing what they're told for society really to work properly in this sense. In this capitalistic sense, we need the people at the top need the people below them to be doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing, or else they're going to stop making money. So there's all these, you know, methods of control through, you know, so many different avenues, through school, through the, you know, through our water even, where, and it's like, if you look into our past, like all our presidents, like the great big politicians were part of ritualistic orders like the Freemasons, or you know, Aleister Crowley's The Golden Dawn and everything. There's like these powerful people understand how the mind works, and especially during World War II, when they started investing more money into figuring out human psychology and how the mind works, and how they can manipulate their enemy. Instead of manipulating their enemy, they manipulate their own people and the control of their people. And it's through everything, through media, through everything we kind of are in right now. It's this thing to keep you distracted, to keep you in your 9-to-5 job so that they can stay at the top.
Yeah, man, it's true. And we don't even have to get into like Illuminati or things like that, but it's purely like a cartel, you know, of a zeitgeist cartel, you know, a mindset that's embedded in this corporate world that gets passed on, because every generation you have people who want to make money, who want to succeed, who want to hold that above everything, because that's what they've been taught. God, my camera looks so cool with these lights. And yeah, I don't really buy like the whole, like, I think there's powerful people. I don't want to really go down that rabbit hole right now, but I definitely think it's more of a mindset than anything. And my conclusion with that is that the divine and God, and you know, as shown through astrology, is inevitable, and that, you know, no human can push away what's meant to happen.
Right.
But then that brings us back to timelines.
Yeah, so this is the theory of this divergent timeline, is that, you know, as humans, we, especially the people at the top, want to play God. They want to become gods in themselves, but they don't have the spiritual tools to develop themselves that way. So they're looking to external means, and through that is like, you know, genetic modification or technological implants. And we're seeing this with Elon Musk right now, where he wants to put a chip that will cure depression instead of actually doing the spiritual work to cure depression for yourself, and, you know, cure anxiety. And so they're offering all these things that seem good, but what's happening is that you're not doing any of the work to get there yourself, so you're not actually evolving. So what you're doing is you're pretty much staying the same spiritually, but now you're substituting your organic body and your organic frequencies and magnetic field for these artificial technological things. And so this divergent timeline that's being talked about leads to the development of these aliens that we call the Zeta Grays. And the Zeta Grays aren't actually...
Is that what astropsych is? APC?
APC?
APC is a Zeta Gray, right?
I feel like a certain sort of connection there to the Grays in terms of his energy frequency. He might be connected with them unconsciously.
I thought he said he told us he was a Zeta Gray. I thought
he told us, this psychic told him that he was a Zeta Gray, and it was crazy because I said that to him, and he's like, before I even knew that, because I just felt that energy. But what a Zeta Gray is a human that went down this divergent timeline, and what they did was now their energetic body, their chakras they have less chakras than we do now. So they've actually descended and they've come back to this timeline to try and kind of rebuild themselves and take DNA from us. And what happened is they lost their heart. They lost their heart and their emotion.
Oh, shit.
And they became...
That's such a crazy parallel to humans right now.
Yeah. So we see that happening. We have this huge fight for people who are we see it in science, where it's pure rationale, pure logic, and that's kind of becoming the new religion. And so there's a timeline where we could 100% develop that way, where we genetically and scientifically cut out and dissect our own heart in favor of logic and in favor of rationale. But what that does is we lose our emotions, and we lose our connection to the natural world and to one another in terms of our empathy and our ability to connect on emotional levels. So that there is a very possible timeline, and these Zeta Grays are us from the future and from a timeline that diverged. Really? Yeah. And that's and a lot of people are so scared when they see them, because they're deformed in their body, because they've done all these genetic modifications. They've tried to play God. They've merged with kind of artificial intelligence and with technology, and they've lost their heart. So there's no heart frequency there. And that is the core of what makes us human. So they pretty much bred their own humanity out of themselves. And that's why they're back. And that's why there's so many traumatic abductions are from Zeta Grays. It's because they're taking humans, and you can see these like accounts on YouTube. There's actually a really good one that I talked about before. It's the Yes Theory. If you go to Yes Theory and you look up their alien abduction video, there's this whole town that experienced the same thing, and they have interviews with people who are in no relation to one another, but are recounting the same thing. And
I've heard this a similar thing, but keep going.
Yeah, and so this is a possible divergent timeline, but we have another timeline we can go down, which is a very organic evolutionary point where we become superhuman, but through evolution. And this is kind of where we see the Pleiadian and the Venusian beings coming in. It's because they're taking a form, and they're expressing our future through an organic evolution. And so we have these two timelines right now that we could go down, whereas the destruction of our Earth, which is actually Earth represents the heart of our solar system.
Fuck, you just remind me of something crazy, dude. I have to say this and put a pin on where you were. Dude, remember the Vedic astrologer who said I was going to die in 2070 or 2060?
Yeah.
Dude, I don't know what I heard yesterday. I was on zero sleep because I did the all-nighter so I could sleep earlier. I heard something somewhere about the world, like some psychic thing about the world ending in 2060. And right away, I was like, I don't know if that's happening. But it was exactly the same year, and I forget if it was to the month. I forget if they said November also. But my first thought was like, what if the Earth ends in 2060 and I'm not dying of that age at that age because of like bad health or something? I'm dying at that age because the whole world dies. Oof.
Dude, and that's possible because scientists say we have like 30 years left, if we continue down this timeline of like where we continue to ignore the environmental concerns and strains that we're putting on the earth. 30 years, even less, some say. So it's very possible. And if we look at our universe, we have a very in-depth understanding through astrology of the different planetary spheres, but we don't really look at Earth. And what does Earth represent to us? The Earth is our home, and it has so many different terrains. Like it has desert, ocean, forest, jungle, volcanoes, fire. Like it is kind of everything mixed to one, and is the heart of our galaxy.
Earth is God. Earth is everything, man. It's God.
Well, everything is God.
It's love. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, Earth. I mean,
Earth is it's impossible for us to see what it is because we'd have to be on Mars to understand it. We don't have a reference.
No, but I see it now. If we talk about it, it's like when we talk about Mother Gaia, which is Gaia is the Greek term, but it's kind of been for Earth, but it's kind of been adopted by spirituality. But Mother Gaia is the mother, is the heart, is the abundance of this green leaves and fruits.
Now I feel her. She's very feminine. She's very good sense, very like loving, like with animals, and I think of like Native Americans like really embodied that energy of like what Earth energy is. It was like Native Americans singing, chanting, power.
Yeah,
very Pisces Pisces/Taurus.
Yeah, like Celtic Druids, where it's all about animism and the understanding that everything is alive, and there's a heart, there's a song to everything. And this is kind of the big teaching of Earth in our time right now, because apparently at one point in our universe, Mars existed just like Earth, where it had a whole ecosystem and everything until the cycles changed. But right now the role of Earth is our heart, and we're destroying our heart, and we're also destroying our own hearts. So if you look on a macro micro scale through the law of like as above so below, we can see that the Earth is our heart through the parallel of what we're doing as a society to ourselves. And what we're doing is we're moving to logic and away from emotions and away from our heart and empathy. And so you can see that trajectory that we're on, but there's a huge fight back right now. And so there's this struggle between these two timelines, and it's about choosing and directing your energy down which one you want to go.
Yeah, because the whole time you've been talking about this, I've been thinking about like the separation between these two. Like, could both timelines exist, but for different people? Can it be the case that by choosing a life of virtue and spirituality, by that I don't mean just meditating, just you can be a spiritual person by being a male employee, or like fucking just having a family, just following your heart, being a good person, not being selfish, not being a sinner in the real kinds of sins. Could it be possible that we could both exist in the same physical reality, but one part of the people are actually living in hell while the other part are living in heaven?
Yeah, I mean, the potential, I mean, the theory of timelines is that actually we're going to go down them no matter what. So there's going to be a version of me and you that go down a divergent timeline, like towards the Zeta Grays, towards that. And then there's going to be another version of us that goes towards the organic evolution. Oh. So it's actually, everyone's moving down all of them, but it all is depending on where our conscious awareness chooses to go. So if we choose the AI virtual reality, chip world, if we choose that through our energetic consciousness, then we're going to go down that one. Or if we choose the organic one, then we're going to go down that one consciously.
Wait, but when you say they exist, maybe they just exist as possibility, as like, it's like I think of this like red, like this board of everything's colored, and you're like this little like kind of like a maze, you know, where you're like this more solid color, kind of like going up and down, and like and that's your conscious awareness, and then everything surrounding you is like the every possible timeline, but like so you're saying you've lived every single possible one, or is every single one a quantum possibility or whatever you want to call it that hasn't necessarily physically happened?
Yeah, that's
because that would mean you'd have to live so many incarnations. That's kind of how I just visualize it, is like no, it exists, but just like it's like the tree that fell in the forest, you know, did it make a noise type thing.
Yeah, the theory is that it wouldn't make noise if it's not being observed, but
exactly.
So it's like if you're consciously observing the timeline, but what makes me question that is because if we're believing in the grays and the aliens and these abductions and them actually coming back, that means that timeline did happen and that they're coming from a divergent timeline back to this one, which, you know, means that it did happen and they're back and trying to prevent it from happening or trying to fix it from happening. But it seems like so it's like if you think about kind of like time travel and stuff, it's like there's scientific theories that are trying to prove that the future affects the past. So the future's already happened, and it's already happened in an infinite amount of ways. So because time isn't linear, so it's kind of like we're in an infinity loop where the future's already happened. But if the infinity loop was a multi-dimensional shape that represents infinity, but we can't really see that because we only see the infinity symbol in a 2D shape. So it's hard to kind of understand exactly what.
Oh, yeah. That's a really good point, dude. Yeah. So it's one of those things of like the human mind not being able to comprehend, and us kind of just having to talk about it, knowing that the way we're talking about it, it will not make sense to us logically. It will seem fake almost because it's so counterintuitive, but really like you can imagine it being true, and just kind of trying it on and accepting it, and just knowing that like that there's almost some beauty, and this is a really great thing, as there's almost some beauty in understand and hope in just the fact that you understand that your brain can't fully comprehend some things, some divine realities that we don't know. Because like so many people are so pessimistic, like life has no meaning, like it doesn't matter, I'm just gonna die. But it's like there's many things that you don't know that make that sentence invalid.
Yeah.
I just sound like Phil Good.
Yeah, and you don't know what you don't know. And I think reality should be approached in a way where if you're believing, because your belief dictates your reality and your emotions and your experience truly. Because if you live life thinking that nothing matters, nothing's gonna fucking matter. But if you think life that everything matters, it's gonna matter. Like it's that simple. And to try and put this concept into something that is maybe more visualizable or understandable is, let's say we do go down a timeline where everything becomes technological and artificial, but we understand the different dimensions of reality. So right now we can only move through the 3D world of space, right? We can't move through time and those things yet because we haven't come to the multidimensional realizations of ourselves yet, the cosmic consciousness, the cosmic understanding of ourselves. But let's say I'm in the future I understand, and I exist within the fourth dimension for my consciousness, the fourth density, and I exist within the fifth, or like a multi-dimensional being, so that now it's no longer I can only move through space, but I can also move through time. So I could technically take a vacation through time, because it's just another dimension to me, just like space. It's like I can walk so from one point to another point. Like I can go from Costa Rica to Argentina. That's really easy because I am a dimensional being who can move through space. But I can also go up and towards the sky and down into the earth. But if you're a two-dimensional being, you can only move laterally across your two-dimensional plane. You can't move through space, through the 3D space. And so to try and conceive that is like, you can't go up into the sky because there is no sky for you, because, you know, there isn't those 3 dimensions. So it's just like that. It's easy for these beings to travel through time because they're multidimensional, but we just can't conceive of what that really looks like.
Yeah, man. And you totally create your own reality. You're totally right. So like anything is possible if you put your mind to believing that anything is possible. If you have that, and that's, I think, a good thing for people to take away is that, you know, your mindset of anything being possible allows anything to be possible. Your mindset of this is the way it is just kicks all that away, you know?
Yeah. I mean, the best example of that is an easy example of that is believing, let's say you believe you're not beautiful, right? And maybe, maybe you're not the societal expectation or dictation of what beauty is. So maybe you aren't that.
Right.
But if you believe yourself to be beautiful and you meet someone who believes themselves to be beautiful, they are. Like it shines out through their eyes. And you're like, wow, this person is beautiful.
Yes.
But you have someone who thinks they're ugly, who doesn't like themselves, you know, who has all those negative beliefs. You can see that, and you can see that then you think, oh, they're ugly, because that's exactly the thought and vibration they're producing. Yeah,
man. Self-fulfilling prophecy. So super interesting. What else could we say? Where are we at time-wise? Around 1 hour 30 approaching. Anything else come to your mind about this topic? Like what else? In what other ways? What else?
Maybe something that we don't do very often is kind of give a practical sense on how you could, if you want to explore this idea, on how you could do it, because it is 100% possible. You can explore and connect with the idea of timelines. You can connect with a grand cosmic consciousness, because this is us, this is humanity. We can do that. So I could give like a very kind of simple way to start trying to connect with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we're trying to get to here, if you want to start connecting with timelines, with your higher self, with a cosmic consciousness, is you firstly need to get to a place. It's called the cosmic body, or the star body, or the astral body, and astral consciousness and cosmic consciousness. And you need to get to this state. It's a practice, and it's all you have to do is lie down. And you need to first get to a place where you're not clouded by your thoughts, where you don't have all these thoughts, because what you need is a clear consciousness to be able to direct your intention. Because if you won't be able to focus or do anything if you're constantly getting drawn to like what you're going to eat for dinner, what, like, if this girl or guy likes you or not. So you have to get to a kind of calm state. And you can do this through breathing, through guided meditations on YouTube. But firstly, you really have to believe this is possible for you. You can do this. This is human. This is your human design and a human potential for everyone. And what you should be looking up is how to enter the hypnagogic state, how to induce sleep paralysis, shamanic journeying, like how to get to those places. So that's your first starting point, because that is where it all happens, in the liminal state, in the hypnagogic state. Once you get there, then we can start talking more, because it is a practice to get there itself. And then once you get there, a whole nother world opens up in terms of what you can do, which includes being able to tap into the Akashic records, like we're talking about, tap into, communicate with extra dimensional beings, go to travel into different planets, find all this knowledge for yourself, evolve spiritually into a cosmic mind. It's all right there. You just have to practice getting there. And so yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a form of astral projection, or is it astral projection?
Well, so it is kind of, because your astral body is pretty much your consciousness separated from your body. But there's higher states than that. There's higher states than the astral body. But you can use your astral body to connect with the Akashic records. But you don't actually have to leave. You don't have to leave your body. You can connect with all these things and with all this information through just lying in your bed in that hypnagogic liminal state, when you're aware enough to direct and ask questions. So when you're here, most of the time people will lose their consciousness and slip out. But if you can remain aware and start to ask the questions that you want to be answered, those answers will come in that state, and you don't have to leave your body to do it.
Interesting. I'll have to try that one day.
Yeah. Reality checks too. Those are good. Where every hour you set a timer and check if you have to ask yourself if you're dreaming, and then tell yourself you're awake and pinch yourself and like count your fingers, because when you start to ingrain that into your subconscious, it'll start to slip into your dreams, and your dreams can be a springboard to enter your astral body. Lucid dreaming can be a springboard to enter the astral consciousness.
Yeah, it's all very fascinating. It's crazy, to think about how we could exist in so many different forms and every potential. It just makes you really think, like, because some people have like the attitude of fate ruling everything, very determinist and stuff, but I feel like it puts a lot more power in your free will.
Yeah, and your free will, is almost like you are fate. You control fate, because fate is not an external force. It's a perspective where we're separate from the grander workings of the universe, the grander forces. But like, these huge forces work through us, like in our emotions, in our behaviors, in our personalities. So we're part of it, but we just don't understand, because we've narrowed our scope of who we are. But when we get to our bigger, grander state, free will means we are literally controlling our own fate. And so we are in control of that force. Yeah.
As opposed to being pushed around by the flows of whatever, right?
Exactly. It's just like dreaming. If you're lucid, you can control your dream. You can raise cities. You can fly if you want to. But if you're unconscious in your dreams, the dreams have a current of their own. And that's just like with waking reality. If you're unconscious to a certain extent of everything within your waking reality, then you just follow that flow of fate. But then when you become lucid in your waking reality, then that's when your free will truly activates.
Very cool. Well, we can maybe wrap it up on a light note, or anything else coming up?
Light note. Yeah. No, I think we tackled it.
So what else is going on? That's we like the world. We were talking about something on the phone. I can't remember. We're talking about sleeping. And yeah, just I guess that's not that interesting. We're both, people started shifting my sleep. I've been like going to bed like really, really late and waking up really, really late, just kind of with the fuck it COVID and attitude. Not that I've been like doing bad stuff, but there just hasn't been a real excuse for me to not do that. And I'm switching it up, and it's been really nice after, this being my first day, even though I'm pretty tired right now. And we were talking about that.
Yeah, taking 20 minutes nap.
Taking
a 20-minute nap in the afternoon is actually, really healthy for the human body. So it's like in society, in like you see in Spanish society and Italian society, they kind of give the time for that. Like you have your little siesta after lunch, and you kind of get this big break where everything shuts down for a while, especially in Italy, like going through all the towns and cities, like maybe not Milan or Rome, but the, Siena, Florence, like places, they shut down for like a couple hours after lunch. And it gives this time to kind of take a rest, and the body needs it.
And like the US kind of attitude would be like, oh, it's bad for like efficiency, you lose money, but you probably end up making money because of, the customers just come after, and your energy is way so much better that you probably attract more clientele. If you like, it's just a good summary for the American way.
Yeah.
But yeah, man,
American
we touched on a lot of
go until you drop.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, we definitely touched on a lot of interesting stuff in this one. What could we talk about in future podcasts? I guess I know we always, if anyone listening has any ideas that you think would be cool for us to talk about, please do send them along to either Trey or I. I like how we've just been kind of like deciding last second. Like it's good to like kind of have general ideas, but literally, I feel like it's kind of downloads. It's in that sense of like spiritual downloads. Nice glasses, bro. Because we just start talking, and then it's like the idea is planted, like something led us to talk about what we talk about. And then we're like, oh, that'd be a cool idea for the podcast. So maybe that's just like the best strategy for us, because it's worked so far.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we should talk about like cultures and stuff at some point.
Yeah, the beauty of culture. Shit.
Yes.
All right, so let's bring it all up to a close. Anything left, Jesse, or should we say goodbye?
I think it's good. We're about an hour 30. So yeah, we'll get this edited and put out sometime this week. Thank you for listening, everyone. And don't forget to subscribe. Helps us out. Tell your friends if you think they would like it. We're just trying to keep it going and be in the top 30 charts of Greece. Yeah, I got an email that said that your Jesse and Trey podcast is in the top. It was like 21 or 31, forget, of spirituality podcasts in Greece. So that's, what we're going for. You Greek people keep listening, and everyone else as well.
Love Greece.
Thank you. Yeah, maybe it's all your fans.
Yeah, cool. Peace out, everyone. See ya.
Thanks, guys.